All right, thanks for joining us this morning. We'll get started with Coach Blashill. Please let us know if you'd like to ask a question. Start with Coach Johnson.
Playing a tough team, is it a matter of changing structure of your gameplay or tightening up?
No, it's not. It's probably never a matter really of changing what we do. Certainly there's tweaks or adjustments. It's more kind of heightened awareness of what they're strong at, in making sure that we understand either, where our coverage needs to be great or where we can attack their coverage. But basically it still comes down to you playing your game and playing it really well against any team. Obviously Boston's a good team, but we've played lots of good teams. So we got to go out and play real good hockey.
After a string of losses, is it tough to build up the confidence in the locker room and have it translate to the ice?
Well, confidence is certainly an important piece, but ultimately you have to. There's no easy way to grab confidence when you've lost it. Whether it's an individual, a specialty team, or a team play, it affects you. But you have to go out and earn that confidence back by playing really good hockey. And you can play real good hockey and not win. That's the reality of the league. But if you play it, you know when you're doing things right. So we just got to go out there and do it right as much as humanly possible, time after time, and in the end, results follow that.
And how important is the defensive play of the Red Wings when going against a dynamic team like the Bruins?
Well, I think the defensive play is, something we've talked about all season that we haven't been good enough at, and ultimately for us to be a better team. And avoid stretches like we are, you have to be a team that's really, really strong defensively. The Bruins present two challenges because they can certainly exploit you from an offensive standpoint, but they're very, very good defensively and they're hard to create against. So it will not be easy for us to create tons of chances tonight. So we got to make sure we limit their chances.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
Bob Duff.
And Jeff, people associate, when you pick a guy in the top 10 in the draft, the first thing they associate is offensive numbers. But when you look at what Rasmussen's developing into, he's good face-off guy. He plays physically. He's going to get 12 to 15 goals. And if he becomes, as you've talked about, that defensive shutdown center for you and a guy who can eventually be a net front on the power play, that's a guy who can help you win a lot of games.
100%. I've used obviously the comparison with Jordan Stahl. I'm not saying he's going to be Jordan. Jordan's had a hell of a career, but Jordan helps Carolina win tons of games, and he's not their highest scoring player. But we've talked lots this year about being better defensively, and ultimately, one of the best ways to be better defensively is have guys that defend really well. And so if he can grow into that checking type center, who's long, who can bring physicality, who can bring an edge, who can go up against the other team's best players and shut them down and try to wear them down in the offensive zone and then get on the power play and score goals net front. He'll be extremely valuable to this organization. I think we've asked a lot of him this year. There's been times where he's checked well and times where he's still had to learn. It doesn't all, when you're really young, sometimes it doesn't. It's like a defenseman. It usually takes those defensemen longer because over time, you just kind of know where to stand. But over time, you've seen lots of chaos and you know how to sort through the chaos. Well, it's the same thing for a young center. It's easy when things are exactly how we draw them on the board, but rarely in hockey is that the case. And so you learn how to sort through that structure. And sometimes that just comes with experience. And he's gained experiences. And at times this year's done a good job. And at times he's needed to do a better job defensively. But ultimately, if he can fill into that role, I think it's a huge thing for an organization moving forward.
Thanks.
Yep.
Ted Colfin.
Hey Jeff, with the Bruins in town today, and you guys have seen Pittsburgh and Tampa lately. I mean, some of these teams like those, have they developed a culture along with just the overwhelming talent that they have? I mean, is it a combination of those two things that makes these teams in the playoffs every year?
Well, it's always a combination of those two things. You have to have talent and you definitely have to have culture. And my experience is culture. Ultimately, it comes from those best players being committed to playing two-way hockey. And that's when teams start winning a lot. And I've referenced this before, but even a real talented team like Tampa ultimately didn't win the two cups until they committed to playing a more 200-foot game. I think in Patrice Bergeron, you've probably had one of the very best winning hockey players in our generation, in a sense of he's very talented, very good player, but he's absolutely plays both sides of the puck and does it great. And when you do that, then you can demand that of everybody else. And so you need both, Ted, and you need culture and you need talent. And when you have both, then you can do special things. If you only have talent, you're not going to win enough. And if you only have culture, you just don't win enough because you're not talented enough. So you need both, that combination of those two things.
So the top players on those teams set the tone, and everybody kind of follows them. Everybody who comes into the organization or signs with them and whatnot, they kind of see those guys do it. It's like, all right, that's how we have to do it here.
That's been my experience, on the teams that I've had that have been great. And again, you have to have enough talent to be able to do that. But they had a guy like Charles. They've had Bergeron.
Yeah.
Marchand's the same way, and I've seen them practice, and I know how hard they practice, and I know they're not afraid to give guys grief when they don't do it to that standard, and that's when you really start to build something that can be consistent over time. So again, you need that combination of the two things. You need the high end talent. You need guys committed to winning, specifically from your best players.
Good stuff. Thanks.
Yep.
Ansar Khan?
Yeah, Jeff, just one more thing on Rasmussen. Just when a guy's a prolific scorer like that at the lower levels and a high draft pick, I mean, does it sometimes take a while for them to accept that they're going to be a different type of player in the NHL, just to embrace that different kind of energy type role?
Well, I would say, generally in the top, first round or certainly in the top 10, all those guys produced at a high level. And I think, for a lot of young players, they got to figure out as quickly as they can, are they going to be that high end offense in the NHL? And if not, how can I make myself real valuable? And sometimes that happens quicker than others. I would say with Michael, he's recognized that, and he's working hard at trying to become a really, really good two-way player, a guy who can go out and check against the other team's best. And again, it's not easy. It's not something that happens right away. It takes some time, and especially if it's not something that you necessarily had to do prior to this. Some of the best guys that are really, really good two-way players weren't the highest drafted guys. Maybe they're second rounders, maybe they're third rounders, but they were that because maybe they didn't produce the same extreme points, but yet they checked great, or somebody had a little question mark on part of their play. Well, that checking great brings you, gets you into premier roles real fast in the NHL. And so, I do think there's a mindset at times that a young player has to go through. At times it's hard for them to recognize that maybe they aren't going to score to the same level. That to me has not been the case with Michael Rasmussen. I think he's a guy who's recognized where he can be valuable. Him and I've had these conversations lots, and I think he's working hard at trying to really become unique in a sense that he can be a big checking center that can also be net front on the power play and produce points, but shut other people down.
And is Gagne available?
Gagne is available.
And everybody who played last game, anybody not available?
Nope, we anticipate everybody being available.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep.
All right, those are all the questions we have for Coach Blashill this morning. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Yep.